The Michelle down is on. I'm John Chidley Hill,
And I am Sheldon Alexander.
and this is You Killed It, the podcast talking about the challenge. Shelly, I gotta tell you, I was looking forward to watching this episode all day. I was hyped to see how things panned out with Michelle, and would people finally turn on her? Like when the last episode ended, I didn't think of it as a cliffhanger or anything, but like as the hours drew close to me watching and then us recording this podcast, like I was hype. I was like, yeah, like I want to know what's next. I
Yeah.
like I don't know that Michelle's like the villain of the season, but
Mhm.
like I was ready to see how things would pan out.
Yeah. I didn't realize, I got to be honest, I didn't think that it would automatically just shift that quickly onto her. And like, we'll get into it when we get into the thick of the actual episode. But I just feel like, it really just was worst case scenario for her, the way that it ended up playing out. You know what I mean? I think that was
Yeah,
the big problem.
worst case scenario for her, but also like this is a situation entirely of her own making. And I think it's Desi that later says like we could, the four of us, Desi, Chanel, Michaela, Michelle, which is so funny because like now that I say their names out loud, it's like the purple cobras from the Dodgeball the movie, like Blaze, Laser, Blazer, right?
Yeah.
Chanel, Michelle, Michaela, like it's like their names anyway.
I gotcha. I
Um,
gotcha.
but Desi says, and this is so right, the four of them could have made the final together.
So, see, I kind of have a different take on this. And I know that I've been, half doing a bit this whole season regarding Michelle, but I'm actually being like serious here. I thought throughout the episode, so especially at the beginning, right? Michelle's talking to Chanel and Desi, and she's straight up, like, hey guys, I'm sorry. She's trying to talk about it. And like, whether right or wrong, I give her respect for at least trying and like owning up to it. Like, hey, this is what I did. I'm sorry. I'm wrong. Blah, blah, blah. It doesn't take back what she did, right? She didn't have to do that. She could have just told them, like, no, I'm not doing it. And that would have been the way better way to go about it, obviously. But I respect the fact that she's like sat down with them and talked about it. I also respect the fact that when Tori comes in, and Tori's talking to them and trying to figure out who are the other votes, Michelle steps in and she says, you know what? Like, honestly, though, like the truth is that I led them to believe as well that like they would have more votes and I would be voting with them. She doesn't have to do that either. And like, at the end of the day, I think I'm giving her credit for doing that because she didn't have to do that at all. And she's also probably giving up some of her game to Tori as well, in terms of telling her, like, hey, these are conversations I was having. Cause it's not like she told Tori this, right? She just didn't really go with it. So, yeah, I'm giving her a little bit of credit here for at least like standing in it. I feel like a lot of times when this stuff happens on the show, where someone goes against someone else or they're caught in the lie, they either try to die on the lie or they like run off and hide or deflect. And she just owned it. And I give her credit for that.
Yeah, I gotta say, when this conversation began, so like it's we should say it's Chanel and Desi are sitting with Michelle, basically being like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
And then Tori joins them and also is like, "Hey, what the fuck, guys?" And Chanel is the first to apologize, and then Desi apologizes, and like I thought they're pretty good apologies, but I also was like, man, if I was Tori, I wouldn't buy it. But then, and like, there was a moment where I said to myself, Michelle's not going to apologize. Michelle's just going to, like, in my head, having like a producer brain, I was like, Michelle is going to let these two fall on the sword. And then they're going to get mad at her when the scene, like, the next scene will be them, like, actually losing their tempers on Michelle and being like, hey, you should have spoken up there, sort of thing, right?
Mhm.
But you're right, she owned it, and like I did like her more than I usually do for that. And I was genuinely surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, because again, you didn't have to do that. And we've watched the show for long enough to see the exact same scenario play out and people handle it a completely different way. Mind you, Tori is still mad. The other part
Yeah,
I didn't get is there's no mention that we saw, at least in the edit, of Michaela's role in that whole thing. I
no.
thought that was very interesting because I feel like Michaela's name had to come up at some point, but they didn't show that part to us. I know Josh is also doing a lot in this episode, but I feel like that's like filler because there's really no need for any of it.
What do you really think it was filler?
So here's the thing. Yeah. So Josh talking about, his whole conversation where he goes up to the other dudes and he's like, guys, it just hit me. We're in the top 5. And Bananas is like, you just realized this now? And I love Corey. Corey's like, come on, man, just let him have his moment. He's never made it this far before. I thought that was hilarious. But like, we knew this from last week. We talked about this from last week that, this was the place where the show was in and that the guys had figured it out. They're going to make it to the final, barring like any like weird, crazy twist. But you have the numbers are on your side. And the way that it was going to play out was that this week was going to be a girls' week. So I don't understand the problem.
So that's so interesting because I took this whole plot thread, we'll call it, in a completely different way. And that is longtime viewers of Big Brother and of the challenge know that Josh is a ticking time bomb. I even have it in my notes.
Okay.
When Josh gets nominated, and we're skipping ahead of ourselves, but when Josh gets nominated, I have it in my notes. I'm like, Josh is not going to be able to handle this. And like one of the threads, which I think the producers have to acknowledge, is that Josh cannot handle any kind of pressure.
Yeah.
And so like longtime viewers like me, like you, like the dear listeners of You Killed It, would expect there to be a scene with Josh losing his shit. And so like they have to show us the process of like him being proud of himself, him being tense, him talking about his family, him talking about disappointing people, and then like Fessel and Corey basically being like, hold it together. Like, for the love of God, just like all, and like early on, Josh even says, hey, I know everyone wants to make it a women's elimination. I just have to keep my cool, and it'll be a women's elimination. And then like part of the dramatic tension is like he can barely do it. Like the stress
so
of
ridiculous. It really is.
The stress of keeping his shit together brings him to tears. Like that is how hard your boy like needs to emote.
Yeah. No. I totally get it. And it's super strange. And I thought like Josh is in a safe position. Meanwhile, look at how a guy like Chris is handling it when he should be the one with all the pressure on him because he's a consistent target. And yet he seemed to be managing better than Josh. But I mean, that's not really that surprising. What was surprising to me though was Desi going to Chris and saying, hey, like wanting to work with Chris. I thought that was a very interesting move. Was this just a matter of, people feeling like the other side, they're definitely not on the other side of the vets, so we might as well be together as a unit?
I'll take it a step forward, a step further. Tori sort of ended things with Chanel and Desi being like, what's shown is shown. Like, I like you as people, but like, we're clearly on other sides of the house.
Yeah.
And that the ending of that alliance also effectively means that Johnny Bananas sort of alliance with them is also done, right?
Yes.
So it's very much like my enemy's enemy is my friend.
Fair.
Right?
Totally.
And like Desi's like, listen, we basically need the same things here, Chris.
Yes.
So we might as well work together. right?
Yeah.
Like we might as well like I know what you need, you know what I need. It's the same thing. Let's just like work in tandem. And it's an important scene because we have what I thought was a very interesting daily competition, brain squeeze. So they run into they have a fort that they have to run into. I actually tried to like do some research on this fort and I didn't learn a
Okay.
lot about it. The best I could do was finding a Wikipedia page in Croatian that I had to have Google translate to me.
Okay.
I don't understand who built the fort. I know it was built in the 1800s, and I know it was damaged by the Nazis during the Second World War. That's all I know.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, just because I know you were curious. I know we're big fort guys.
Listen, I always appreciate the knowledge being dropped by you on the pod, so I'm here for it. I
Can I
like
ask you?
learning.
Can I ask you a question, Sheldon?
Mhm.
When you saw that there was a fort on this episode, did you think that I was going to do some research on it? Like, was there the expectation, the understanding?
Anytime there's something kind of cool, I have the anticipation knowing that there's going to be some knowledge dropped here. It's just I've known you long enough. We've done this long enough. It's just what it's going to be. It's just what it's going to be.
I mean, that's what 259 episodes of a podcast will do to you. So what they have to do is run into the fort. They have to find an unknown quantity, and
Mhm.
that's important, of heavy bags. Each bag has a puzzle piece in it,
Mhm.
and it's assigned to them by color. For example, Corey is green. They have to find all their puzzle pieces, return it to a pile, and put it together. Some of the cast members suggest that it might weigh as much, each piece might weigh as much as 50 pounds. That
Yeah.
sounds like a lot to me. I am sure is over 10 pounds.
Yeah, 50 is a lot,
50 is a
especially
lot.
like to be running that distance with a bunch of them. That's a lot to ask. That's a
I,
serious challenge.
I also thought that, like, so like when they stack them up in the puzzle, it gets pretty
Mhm.
high, especially if you are less vertically gifted.
Mhm.
It's kind of a big ask to tell someone who, I don't know who the shortest person is on the show, but like to ask the shortest person on the
Yeah.
show to like do a shoulder press of 50 pounds above their head,
Yeah, right.
right? Like that's a big ask.
Hell yeah.
It's probably like 25 pounds. Even
Mhm.
25 pounds,
Still
if
a
you're
lot.
tired,
Yeah.
is no joke with a shoulder press. So
When I'm in the gym, I got the like 30 dumbbell doing the overhead presses, and that's like a solid, so I can't imagine like you're running, carrying it. Like that's a full on legit serious workout.
yeah, yeah. Also, I say this as someone currently having knee problems. Like that's an uneven surface that they're running on with a weight swinging around. I wouldn't like that in the state I'm currently in.
No, nobody would.
So, Sheldon, what would have your strategy have been going into this? I ask because this is important because people have strategies that work to various degrees. So, what would your strategy be?
Well, the very first thing would be to just team up with people and split up. And then you switch, you trade information with the people on your team, which I feel like was kind of done, but they didn't really show us it really being planned. Like we saw Tori chasing around
Chanel.
Chanel. They're not on the same squad. We saw Bananas and Michaela. They're not on the same squad. So, like, I guess in theory it was kind of happening, but obviously we know what the major breakdown was. It involved two people not on the same team listening to each other, which
Yeah.
why would I be helping you if I know that we don't share the same interests?
So we should say who it is. So Johnny Bananas and Michaela,
Mhm.
as individuals, employ a similar tactic where they're like, I'm going to go find where all the pieces are, map it out in my head,
Mhm.
and then just like go do my thing. Chris, it's just sort of after five, it's like, I'm going to start putting together my puzzle, which like to me is incredibly dumb. Because like when he said he was doing that, I'm like, what if you don't have the bottom piece?
Yeah, I don't know if he thought that one through.
Anyway, So Johnny and Michaela have mapped it out. Johnny has determined that there's 7 pieces.
Mhm.
Michaela knows that there are 8 pieces because there's like one long pathway that goes like all the way down, and
Mhm.
you have to go all the way to the bottom to get to the 8th piece. Numbers 6 and 7 are along the way on this downward ramp.
Mhm.
And Johnny, as he runs past her, is like, "Are there any down there?" And she goes, "Nope." And he's like, "Cool, thanks for the information." And I say this, like, I think it's so interesting that's Johnny that fell for this because he did this earlier this season where he purposely gave vague information. I mean, he didn't outright lie like Michaela did, but he purposely gave vague information to his competition.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
like it goes to show, I guess, his fatigue level. Maybe I hesitate to call Johnny Bananas naive because like he's
He
not a naive person in
in this
general.
scenario, he was though.
He was in this scenario. He
Very
was,
much.
and like everyone, everyone that listens to this podcast knows, like I'm not really backing the survivors. Like
Mhm.
I really respect Desi. Like I think Desi's the best of the survivor players.
Mhm.
And like I think Michaela's done something smart, something's dumb. You know, like I'm sort of mixed on
Mhm.
them, but Desi especially I have a lot of respect for. But man, the survivors absolutely outplayed the challenge vets. Credit where credit is due. And like they were playing so smart that I was rooting for them.
So the other part I didn't really get, but we're obviously playing with more information watching it. But the fact that all the vets were there putting together their 7 pieces, meanwhile, all the other people weren't there. So obviously, wouldn't you have noticed them coming back with an extra piece? I guess not. I assume not.
I can't
I
explain it,
guess
Sheldon.
it was just a weird dynamic. But I got to give Michaela a lot of credit because, as you said, that's a Johnny Bananas move, and she pulled it on Johnny Bananas. So also for them to pull that off in the way that she did, for them to communicate that with their crew and their crew only, also very well done. Because when Desi tells Chris, Chris has no idea, right? So,
Yeah.
and she did it kind of, on the low. No one else heard really. So, just a great, well executed move by the people who are not the challenge vets. Like, I would have expected this level of gameplay from the challenge vets, and it didn't happen that way.
I got to point out, Chris returns and is assembling his puzzle,
Mhm.
and he tells the challenge vets
Oh, yeah.
that there's an 8th piece.
Yeah.
If he hadn't done that, I'm not sure they would have clued in.
Yeah.
Certainly, they would not have clued in. And like, it doesn't matter. He won, but like, this could have been a blowout. I also have to say something just about CBS Challenge Light, whatever you want to call it. One of the things that I have struggled with as a podcaster of this show, I have found it's not a very funny season. There's not a lot of good quips. There's not a lot of like I find when you and I record this, I have a really hard time coming up with the line of the episode because frankly they're just like they haven't been that many,
Yeah.
right? Like it's not like I might get a chuckle when I watch this, but I'm not like laughing out loud, except this episode.
Mhm.
There were some great lines in this episode, and one of the great moments is Fessel is saying like doing a confessional, doing it straight to camera, and he's like, "I've won puzzle challenges before. I've got pretty good endurance," and then it cuts to him vomiting during the daily.
Yeah. So good.
Not my line of the episode because technically it was not a line that made me laugh,
Mhm.
but pretty fucking funny.
It was very good. A very great job of editing that normally will say, I say the best editors in reality television are the editors of Vanderpump Rules
Yeah,
because they do the best job of what I never said that. And then it cuts to the
to them
person and it's
seeing
in
it.
black and white and they say the exact thing they're in real time saying they never said. They do that so well. It's the best. But the challenge editors, I will say, are very close behind. And yeah, that was just a well played moment. But so as we mentioned, the survivor peeps or the survivor crew, they end up outsmarting the vets and winning. And you got
Mhm.
Chris and Desi. And I gotta say, you know, I didn't really know where it was gonna go after this happened, because I was interested to see, like, are they gonna try to make big moves? What's gonna play out? How's this all gonna play out? And I thought it was very interesting because we get back to the house and here comes Michaela. Michaela's talking to Bananas and she's like, yeah, so I still want it to be a girl's day. To which Bananas is like, wait, what? Like he's stunned because he's thinking that's not what I expected her to say because she's a woman, meaning, and she didn't win, meaning that she could be going in. And then also, he's like, well, that was our plan all along. So he's just kind of sitting there like, okay, cool. But then she says that she wants Michelle to go in. And then Michelle walks into the room. And then we get, I would say, like the line of the episode's got to be the Michelle down, right? Like that is a great, I don't know where that came from. Was that a thing that existed before? Like,
I mean, it's new to me.
was that made up on the spot? Because that was just like,
It feels like a Johnny Bananas original.
okay.
But I also, like, they've been on seasons together before. This is the first time we've heard it. I think it was. It's the first time we've heard it this season. I think it's brand new altogether.
Well, I thought it was just exceptional. Great wordplay. I feel like that's got to be the name of the episode, Michelle Down, even
Yeah.
though, it's kind of giving away what happened, but whatever. My issue here, and I've been saying Michelle has done a good job this season.
Mm-hmm.
She tried so hard to keep her cool in this confrontation with Michaela, but Michaela just out-calmed her, if that makes sense. Because, there's different argument styles. There's a style of the loudest person wins. There's a style of I'm just going to like yell, right? Yell in someone's face. There's a style of I'm just going to lie.
Mm-hmm.
There's a style of I'm going to like try to change the topic or like just, throw everyone off. There's so many different things you could do. But one of them is if you're just quiet and calm, you make the other person seem like they're losing it and they're out of control. And thus they must be losing this debate and are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, though, Michelle was right in this argument. Michaela played a role in this whole thing. And Michelle's like, wait, what about your role? Like, you're acting like you didn't do anything. Like, you're making it seem like I was playing both sides or I didn't do anything. What did you say? And Michaela's like, well, I wanted it to be a girl's day, but that was before. It's like, no, but you wanted someone specifically to be in. And Michaela lies. She's like, no, I didn't. And that's all she says. And she's lying and she's wrong. And we all know this. But Michelle ends up losing the argument because she lost her cool and Michaela didn't. Did you read that the same way as I did?
Yeah. And it reminded me of one of the best, I mean, I guess it's reality TV, one of the best TV moments ever. Have you ever seen Dave Chappelle on Inside the Actors Studio?
Yes.
Do you remember in that episode, which for our listeners, if you have not watched Dave Chappelle on Inside the Actors Studio, it's literally the best episode. It was so good that when they did the 200th episode, they brought Dave Chappelle back to be the host. That's how good it was. But like the best moment in the entire episode of Inside the Actors Studio with Dave Chappelle was he says, the worst thing you can call somebody is crazy because it's dismissive and you can't come back from it. Once you're labeled as crazy, no one listens to what you have to say.
Mm-hmm.
And although she never uses the word crazy, Michaela essentially does that, right?
Yeah.
She says like, well, like you're already getting like pink in the face. Like you're already, and Michelle goes, well, that's what happens when I melt down. And Michaela goes, oh, so you are having a meltdown. Like just absolutely gaslighting the shit out of her. And not quite my line of the episode, but almost my line of the episode Michelle goes, I'm a fucking mess. That's a fact. Michelle, what are you doing? No, baby, no.
That was a straight like I was sitting there watching and I'm like, Michelle, she checkmated you right there.
Yeah.
Chestnut checkers. Michaela, like she got her, right? She just kept talking and let Michelle talk herself into melting down,
Yeah.
right? Like your face is red. What do you mean? Well, this is just how my face gets. It's like she tried. She tried. It was a valiant effort. But Michaela just was more ready for the argument or the confrontation than
Yeah.
Michelle was. And I think part of that is plays into the overall problem with Michelle's game this season or just overall. The reason why Michaela was able to just straight directly go at her is because Michaela has a direct point of contention. She's a direct point of which side she's on. Michelle is always having to overthink what she says because she's playing both sides. So you're
Yeah.
constantly thinking, wait, who else is in the room? What's this person going to think? What's that person going to think? Where Michaela's cards are on the table. People already know which side she's on. People
Yeah.
already know that she's going at this side of the house or that side of the house, right? And
Mhm.
Michelle's just not playing the same game.
Who was, this is a deep cut, and I know we're going to have listeners listening to this. Who was that doctor who was on like season 2 or 3 of Big Brother? Who is partnered with, he's in Chilltown with Mike Boogie.
Yeah,
Doctor,
I don't even remember. I don't
you
remember,
remember?
but I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Oh, I know we're going to have listeners who are screaming right now. But he said something that is season 2 of Big Brother. I'm looking it up right now because it's so important. It was Dr. Will Kirby.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Will said that one of the most important things in a situation like Big Brother, which I think is a little more extreme because they're like stuck in a single house, on like the challenge where they like get to go outside, they have like they get to go to bars and restaurants and stuff. But one of the things that Dr. Will always said was the most important thing you can do in a situation like this is be consistent. Because after a certain point, people will gravitate towards that consistency. Whether they like you or not, they will like the consistency.
True.
And I don't know if that's like something that Michaela is doing consciously, but to your point, it's playing to her advantage that
Yeah.
she's being throughout the season. She's been consistent. She is who she says she is.
Mm-hmm.
And like, even when it drives her alliance members like Desi and Chanel crazy, they know what they're going to get with Michaela.
It's true. It's very true.
So
it's very true.
We've got Chris and Desi, who we already know are on the same page,
Yeah.
have pretty much the most straightforward nomination process.
Mm-hmm.
The only real curveball is that, obviously they put up Michelle. It's a little surprising that they put up Josh instead of Fessel.
Yeah. And that I think is a huge mistake by Chris, just because, it almost makes you wonder, was he trying to like burn the vote?
Mm-hmm.
Almost like, because I didn't really get it. It didn't really make sense. Because are they thinking, do they not realize how little time there is before the final? So they're thinking Fessy has more of a chance to win and then come back at them. Because to me, the move is you obviously try to put in Fessy and then you use your votes, which clearly the whole house was on board with making it a woman's day. So maybe that's it. They just put in Josh just to burn it anyways, because you weren't going to get Fessy out. So you're just getting him mad. I didn't really understand the gameplay, because I think the move to make, if I was Chris especially, was to take the shot at Fessy and not Josh. But
we talked about this last episode of You Killed It. People overthink these things.
Mm-hmm.
The format is you to the best of your ability, you put in the 2 people you like the least, or are your biggest competition, and then one of them goes home. And Fessel is bigger competition than Josh.
And would they have had the numbers because the way that it all played out really made no sense. The votes, the secret votes.
No, the numbers. Well, but like I'm not even saying it's an issue of numbers because, as we know, all it takes is one vote.
True, very true.
So like you don't even. You're just like, okay, I'm gonna put in Fessel, and then basically out of a sense of obligation, Michelle, because she's nominated, is going to vote for a guy.
Yeah.
So I've got a puncher's chance that Fessel's
Mhm.
going in against someone, and it's not me. Great.
Yeah.
And my hands aren't getting dirty.
Who made the one vote for Corey?
I assume Michelle.
Yeah.
Right, because like she did have that
That
conversation with
obviously makes
Josh.
sense. Yeah.
Like, who are
Yeah.
you going to vote for?
And
I'll
she
leave it
wouldn't
up to
pick
you.
Bananas. She wouldn't pick Fessy. Yeah, that's true.
No.
Fair.
So yeah.
Fair. Totally makes sense. But yeah, I mean, it was a very interesting move for sure. And as you mentioned, we talked about it a bit before. Josh trying to stay calm, and he's struggling because he's Josh, of course.
Corey and Fessel do everything in their power to not have like Josh freak out. Like they do everything except restrain him.
But the thing I don't get is that we already had the scene where he finally figures out the numbers. So then why would he be nervous if he's already figured out the numbers and knows the amount of numbers? And this is another scenario as to, we've had this discussion before on the pod, where I suggest Josh is doing a lot of acting because he knows it's going to end up on the show. Because if he's not acting here and trying to pretend that he's nervous, this doesn't make any sense.
I mean, there's another explanation. And like this, the simplest, it's Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is usually the correct one.
Mm-hmm.
Josh is stupid. I'm just gonna put that out there. And like, this is my line of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
We're at the elimination, and as we've discussed, Corey and Chanel each get a vote. Cassidy gets 7 votes.
Yeah.
Cassidy must be from Toronto with the screw face she's giving. But then, Hopper's gonna hop, and TJ pulls one of Cassidy's 7 balls. I'm gonna say this again. Corey has 1, Chanel has 1, Cassidy has 7.
Yeah.
And your man's Josh says, honestly, the Hopper was just on my side, man. He had an 8-1 chance. This is what I mean when I say Josh is dumb. Right? He had the lowest odds of going in.
Yeah. He's Josh though, right? Like he's Josh. What are you going to do?
That's my line of the episode though. I don't think it was intentional comedy, but I sure laughed hard.
But
like,
I think,
what a dummy.
Again though, I think he's just saying stuff to make it on the show. Right?
But like
he thinks that's what he should be saying.
In fairness to him, like it's a natural from a production standpoint. Oh, we gotta get Michelle's reaction. We gotta get Cassidy's reaction. We gotta get Josh's reaction. And then, like, Josh doesn't have to do anything extra in that moment to get on the show. He just says, arguably the dumbest possible thing in that scenario. Like that's his instinct, is to say the dumb thing.
No, for sure. I totally agree with you.
So Cassidy versus Michelle in an elimination called Hot Wheel, which basically has a 20-foot long bar with 2 steering wheels at either end, and there's a blowtorch in the middle attached to it, and they have to twist it to light off their own explosive targets. Like there's a fuse on each one. So there's 6 targets for each of them, and like they have to not just twist the steering wheel, they also have to push it back and forth. Yes. What did you think of this elimination when you saw it laid out?
So I thought it was pretty cool, but I also thought that like my issue with it was that it was a little too hard, if that makes sense, right? Like in terms of, I thought it could have gone on forever because they didn't really tell us how long it was, but at the same time, like if you just stand your ground and try to like tire the other person out, you could probably win. You'd have a pretty good chance of winning, just conserving your energy, right?
Well, and that's exactly what Cassidy does, right? Like that is her strategy.
So once, because for me, watching this in real time, as soon as I noticed that, okay, this is an endurance challenge, I had the feeling that Michelle was going to lose because I just felt that Cassidy has already proven to be like a pretty good athlete. And then we found out that she does like, what was it, jujitsu or something like that,
Yeah.
which clearly there's a lot of stamina involved in that. And so as soon as, it was fully explained what was happening, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Cassidy's got this. And,
Well, and
sometimes,
also sorry, I was just gonna say doing jujitsu, you'd have a good idea of like body weight, controlling someone else's body weight and motion
Mhm.
and stuff like that, momentum. I thought Michelle was gonna lose because she's a loser, and that's what they tend to do.
Wow, shots fired. See, yeah, I don't know. I honestly just thought at that point, like, good job, good effort. This isn't going to really go your way, Michelle.
No, I mean, I did find it compelling. Like I was invested. I thought like good visuals, like the one target explodes and like the chunk hits the camera
Mhm.
lens. Like it was pretty good.
Yeah.
You could tell the cast was more invested than last week's
Mhm.
elimination with the barrel tag.
Yeah. I think people were
Um,
cheering for Michelle. What's with the look on your face? What's so funny?
no one was cheering for Michelle. Michaela was straight up helping Cassidy.
You're so mad right now. It's so funny. No, but like,
We don't tolerate falsehoods on this podcast, Sheldon.
that was
This
good.
is a
That was great.
reality based podcast.
I Again, I said this earlier in the show and I'll repeat it now at the end. It's like I feel bad for Michelle in the sense that this was the way, so everyone made it seem like, even she did, my mistake last week is what has me in this position now.
Nah,
And I want to play this back. Sorry. What?
it's not. It's
No,
the
I
entire
agree with you.
season.
Yeah, it's the entire season, right? Because even if you play it out the other way and say that she did vote for Tory, right? Let's say she voted with them and she votes for Tory. If Tory and them win this week, she's going in.
Yeah.
So it was just worst case scenario. And we've seen it time and time again. If you're playing all sides of the house, eventually it's going to catch up to you. And at a certain point, you have to make a choice. We've seen it because we've seen it lately with CT. The last few times CT's been in the house, he
Yeah.
sits on the fence, right? He doesn't really make it known which side he's rolling with until there's a point where you have to pick a side, right? And then eventually you have to pick a side because you're not going to make it to the final without picking a side. It's very rare that's happened. And Michelle's problem was she just didn't pick a side. And even when she did finally pick the side and not go against Tori, it made it bad because then like everyone kind of lost trust in her. If
Yeah.
she last week, I said it already, if her mistake was as soon as Michaela and them came to her, if she said, you know what, guys, I just can't do it. Like
Mhm.
I would like to, but I just think that's too. She didn't even have to like blow up the whole game. She just could have said, "I think that's too risky of a move. I'm with you guys, but I think that's too risky of a move. I don't think we should do that."
They also, I mean, I don't know how true this is, but they all claimed, they all maintained that she was the one. Like we saw this in the fight with Desi and Chanel. It was her idea, and that they had at one point Chanel went back to her 3 times to be like, "Yo, is this still the plan? Are we still betraying Tori? Is
Yeah,
this
yeah,
still the
yeah.
plan?" Like
But we
that's
know
on
it was
her.
Michaela's idea.
It was Michaela's idea, but
I
Michelle
buy that they went
also,
back to her. Yes.
yeah.
You're right.
And also she's just been doing this all season, and this is how she does it every season. And
True.
like I know I've been ragging on Michelle this episode and every episode of this season, but like if Michelle wants to win as bad as she says she wants to win, she needs to really watch these seasons, watch them back with a critical eye, and make changes to how she plays the game.
It's just pick a side, pick a crew when you come into the game, stick with that crew, work with that crew, and be more confident in yourself and your own skills.
Look at the people who are historically successful on this show. Bananas, Wes, Jordan, Smashley,
Tori.
CT, Tori. They have succeeded because they ride with their crew.
Yeah.
Right? And like you're right that like CT in recent seasons has sort of been accused of flip-flopping, but the seasons where he has not flip-flopped, like War of the Worlds, where he was like firmly on a team and there was like no choice in the matter, he won. Like the difference is if he's by himself, he wins, or if he's on like a declared team, he wins. Right? And like that's the key to success. Even going further back, someone like Darrell, who has an excellent record. Darrell's word is bond. If Darrell tells you he's going to vote a certain way, he votes a certain way, and that is it. Right? And like I know this is a show on the surface that seems like it's about deceit, but the people who win are the ones who are consistent and honest.
Yeah.
Maybe not honest, but like hold up their commitments.
Agreed. Totally agree.
So, obviously, Cassidy wins.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this was a great competition, a great showing from Cassidy as well. Like she wins 6-1.
Cassidy's showing me a lot. I got to say that I'd like to see Cassidy on the normal challenge.
Yeah. Cassidy's really grown on me. I have to ask you though, Sheldon, who killed it for you this episode?
Well, much like last week, I said that Chris killed it because they've been gunning at him for weeks and they can't get him out. So I'm doing the same thing this week in terms of Cassidy killed it for me. They're trying to get her out consistently and they can't do it. And the reason I give her more credit than I even gave Chris last week is because she's remained calm and cool. Like she had her outbursts where like I think there's a difference between like she talked shit when she was announced to be going in a couple weeks ago, right? Where she called out a bunch of the other girls that haven't gone in yet. But that's just talking smack. And then you're coming back into the house. I'm with that. I'm for that. She has been in the elimination now multiple times and done in different kinds of eliminations and found ways to win. And I give her a lot of credit for that. And she's not causing trouble in the house. Chris has made it this whole like drama thing every week where he's like, the whole house is against me. I don't know what to do. I got to win or else I'm going in again and blah, blah, blah. And it's just drama. She's just like, all right, I guess I'm going in because none of these other girls have to prove themselves. So I guess it's me again. And she goes in, she kicks ass and comes back into the house. I mean, she's doing work. I give her credit for it. Cassidy killed it for me.
I'm going with Michaela. And don't get me wrong, there were other choices. Desi, I think, would have been a great candidate for this. Josh for holding it together, going against his lesser angels. But
I believe you.
But I'm giving it to Michaela because she got rid of, I think, the person who's been the biggest thorn in her side. She did it without really getting her hands dirty. She solidified, like, one of the things that's been holding her up is that her two closest alliance members, Chanel and Desi, have been riding a little bit with Tori. But now Michaela has successfully separated them from Tori.
Correct.
The next time, like let's say next week, one of them wins the daily competition, Michaela will be able to say, let's go after Tori. They're going to have a hard time saying no.
True. Very true. It's very true.
Significantly, next week is the penultimate episode, the second last episode. It's a double elimination.
That it is, my friend. That it is.
Any predictions?
No, because I think that the one last twist will be a double elimination. And then we're into the final.
Here's my prediction. Are you ready? Based solely off of what we have seen from like preview clips, solely from what we have seen from the like next week, Josh is going to betray Johnny Bananas and put him into Hall Brawl, and Johnny is going to lose.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that. Could definitely see that, of course.
That's what I'm expecting.
Yeah. I mean, what did you think of Chris's answer about keeping Bananas around because he's old?
I think that is a gigantic mistake. I think Johnny is the most dangerous man left in the house.
Yeah.
Because Johnny has two things going over him that the rest of them don't. He's smart.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes being good at puzzles.
Yep.
And he is the most mentally pulled together. Like he doesn't crack like Josh does or like Fessel does, right?
Yeah.
Like I gotta say, Fessel throwing up during that challenge, during the daily challenge, that is not the kind of endurance that you need to run a like season finale.
It's definitely not.
Like they maybe in total ran 10 kilometers in that competition, and it's going to be so much longer in the finale, and he's vomiting.
No, I definitely agree.
I think at this point, as long as Johnny Bananas can make the final, and I don't think he will, but if he can make the final, then it's his to lose.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Definitely with you.
It's also worth saying, for both genders, there's no weak links left.
No. It'll be a good final. No layups.
Josh is the biggest layup in the house, and like he's not that bad.
No, he'll be able to hold his own.
He's got it more fit. His problem is between his ears. Where can the good people, and only the good people, find you on social media?
You can find me on the app formerly known as Twitter at Shell Alexander, on Instagram at Sheldon Alexander, and like and subscribe wherever you get the pod. Bless us with a like, retweet, a share, rate us, review us, unsubscribe, then resubscribe, or unfollow, then follow, all that fun stuff. You're staring blankly at me, and it's hilarious.
I'm waiting for you to ask me what my social media is. You can find me at J to the Hill. I got you good. Until next episode, this is You Killed It.
Well played. Well played. You got me. You killed